Welcome to PR Talk, sponsored by the PRSA of Oregon and part of the MPN, the Marketing Podcast Network. This is your host, Amy Rosenberg, founder of Veracity and author of A Modern Guide to Public Relations. Help other people find our podcast by subscribing, rating, giving us a review, or sharing on social media. Hi guys, it's just Amy today. You're stuck with me for a couple of reasons. Well, number one, somebody canceled on me last week that I was going to record a podcast with, but she had a really good reason. She had a baby. And what was so funny to me was that the person who emailed, I think it's a virtual assistant, emailed to cancel and literally said that she'll reach back to schedule something for next week after she had a baby. And I just wrote back, no, we can let her rest a little bit. I don't need to speak with her next week. And I did decide if they wrote me back asking to do the call a week after she had a baby, I was literally going to decline. Out of protest. So there's that. So that happened, which is good. It's the best reason I've ever gotten canceled on. And frankly, I was probably happy to be canceled on. And you know what? After a while, I have realized everybody loves a good cancel, by the way. So for a meeting even, I did that once, literally once in my entire life. And I actually was sick, but once I canceled a client meeting and it was just, virtual. So it shouldn't have been a big deal, but I just remembered what I always kind of have started saying since COVID. Everybody loves a good cancel. And the other thing is I've been listening to Glennon Doyle a lot. And anyway, there's a reason I'm talking about her that ties into all the shitty things that are going on right now. But Glennon always talks about a good cancel, probably. She loves it when things are canceled because she's not very social. And I'm sometimes social, but it's kind of not. I'm like a fake social person. What that means is I am an extroverted introvert. Okay, I don't know what I'm talking about here. I was not going to talk about that. Okay, let's focus. So yeah, it's really shitty right now. I kind of feel shitty personally, physically, because I'm a little sick. I have also a immunodeficiency. So when I get sick, when I say a little sick, that just means I guess I'm sick, but it's the sickness lingers because I have this low IgA, which is very common apparently. And apparently not a big deal, but I just it makes my sicknesses last a long time and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So yeah, feeling a little crappy, number one. So that's why I'm just I'm not really pushing it too hard with podcast interviews, and we'll talk about that. And then I think a lot of people are feeling emotionally crappy right now because of what's going on. And a few things to say about that. I don't know what to do. So what's going on? I'm talking about Roe v. Wade being overturned. So we're going back in time, essentially. Cool. It takes me a minute to think about what to say. So I think a lot of people are like this too. I don't come out all fists clenched and blazing like a fireball. I mean, sometimes I do in the moment if I already have thought things through. I am kind of like a rebel or what my friend just called me, a table flipper. Talk to you about that later, but apparently I'm a table flipper. Didn't know what that was. We'll explain. Maybe today, maybe not, because I'm a rebel. Anyway, I don't even have notes in front of me. I have been kicked out of my office because my son is on summer break, and my office is in the basement with a really good TV. So he's down there. Okay, mom police, before you call me and say that I need to put boundaries on my son, I will kick him out if I want to. But it's just sometimes easier not to. But thank you for that advice there. Okay, so I was talking about, I should be taking notes when I do these by myself. So anyway, I've been kicked out of my office. And if you hear any weird screaming, that's not literally in my house. That's my son watching a movie. One of those, action movies. Okay, so, well, I was talking about Roe v. Wade. Okay, and what I do is pause before I do anything. But I just get really overwhelmed when there's so much stuff we're supposed to do. So, first of all, humans aren't supposed to hear all of the terrible things that are going on in the world, right? We're really only supposed to handle what is occurring in our village, literally, like when we were literally hunter-gatherers, we worked in villages, and we can only handle that. I and you and everybody else cannot handle news from around the world because bad things happen. Obviously it's good that we know about Roe v. Wade being overturned, but I'm also just talking about school shootings and everything. So this is just a lot to handle, right? So all the things that I think I need to work on starts with, here we go, diversity, equity, and inclusion, school shootings, so guns, and now Roe v. Wade and female feminist body rights. How am I going to do that one too? So I'm going to kind of talk about all three, but the last one, let's just talk about that right now. I don't know how I'm going to work on that, but all I had to tell you, I mentioned Glennon Doyle all the time. She has a podcast called We Can Do Hard Things. She and her wife, Abby Wambach, and her sister have this podcast. And she just released 4 things we can do for this issue. So I will listen to that. I think she released that yesterday. So that's the first thing we can do is just listen to that and then maybe regroup and come back together. And then the other things I've realized, so working on DEI, I get a little crazy, how am I supposed to approach this? What am I supposed to do? And it takes me a minute, but then we find our way. So how I found my way within DEI is that my daughter was having issues at her school. I mean, she's not possibly she's not a marginalized community. I mean, she is Jewish at a Catholic school, but that's, I'm talking about other things occurring at her school that have to do with race and gender and sexuality. And so these things happened and they're happening. And so I'm sitting here thinking, just asking the dumb questions is a DEI committee formed? Okay, that's the dumbest question, but it opens the door for conversation, I guess. And then when that question's not directly answered, it opens the door for more investigation. So what I did with that is I called a friend who actually has experience in DEI. And she said the best DEI advice she ever had or learned was to make a friend. That's it. Make a friend with someone who is different from you. So I made a friend with another mom who is a Black woman, and she's very powerful in this state. And maybe someday I'll have her on to talk to us. But she and I became friends, and we were talking about the things that were happening. And then I looped her in with some of the other moms that we were talking about what is happening. Some of the other moms have minority children, some don't. And a lot of us are just concerned, right? So then all of a sudden, my new friend is essentially directing us and telling us what to do with this issue, which we always should follow the marginalized community's direction, especially when it is them that is being, affected. So in this instance, maybe, women are, in Roe v. Wade, women are being affected. So if the feminist men would like to follow our lead, that would be good. But back to DEI. So we followed her lead, or I did. I basically just said, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And I did it. Don't ask me to do something because I'll do it. And there was so my other DEI friend just said to let the girls lead because they can't just be victims and have us swoop in and take care of everything for them. So the girls organized a protest and a walkout. But in doing so, we're essentially, planning this, organizing this, working together as a team, working on DEI. I didn't need to form a dumbass DEI committee. We're just actually doing some work. Does that make sense? And so I will possibly do a blog to tell you what I learned from my friend on how to have a successful protest, because we learned a little bit there. But anyway, as I was working on this, I realized, I'm setting up some meetings with my friends, talking about this issue. Then we're setting up meetings with the school, talking about this issue. And we're even, creating talking points. Put a PR person in charge. You're going to have, or side by side with another strong, powerful Black woman in charge. I'm the perfect kind of background person to be in the background because I'm in PR. So, they're throwing all these documents around. So I'm just like, let's do a Google Docs file. And I'll just input all of this into our Google folder. And here's our approved talking points from somebody else who is a leader that created them. And here's our, letter. And, do you have any changes? And, kind of compiling all that, being the PR secretary that I am. And then we did have a big old meeting with the administration, including the Catholic school superintendent in Oregon, just saying. And we demanded to meet all in a group when they would not meet us in a group. They said that we had to meet individually, but we had a plan. And my friend said she wanted to meet as a group. So I don't know why, but we're going to do what she says. Does that make sense? Sometimes we don't need to question the marginalized leader. We just do what she says. It's easy that way. And so, the school wasn't doing what she wanted. So I was irritated. So I essentially flipped a table by just pulling my daughter out for the day, very dramatically. And it was one of those moments where I wasn't even in my body or thinking, which that's what my other DEI friend said to do when I actually asked her, should I do a DEI course just for, just to know about things, to be a human being, not to use for PR. She said, actually look into embodiment work. That is embodiment work. And so I Googled it and it's sounds kind of like psychological. I don't know, but I still haven't really looked into it. But anyway, after that experience where I kind of left my body in a rage and grabbed my daughter and left the school in a huff in front of all of these people. Then I thought, maybe I should look into this embodiment work she's talking about. Anyway, I grabbed the daughter. We go home 3 blocks. And then I get a text saying, they will meet with us. So then we go back. We all meet together as a group. And I just take notes. Well, I talk a little bit here and there, as I do, and call people out when they're interrupting other women. When a male at this, in charge of a school interrupts a woman trying to speak who actually works for him, I might call him out and ask him to stop talking so she can finish her question. So doing those things, and then taking notes, and then doing a meeting recap after the meeting and sending it to the school. And then following the directions of doing another complaint letter, saying what our complaints are and sending it to the school. But anyway, after that meeting, my new friend said that I was the table flipper. She said, in any movement, you need a table flipper and a calm leader. And then you need just everybody else. And so she is the calm leader. Obviously, it's not me. And I'm the table flipper. Okay, so maybe that is something to know about me. But anyway, I did do that letter to the blah, 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 principal, superintendent, and the priest of the Catholic school. And guess what? We did not get a response. We're Jewish. I just don't know if you know that. I don't know if they know that. Other people got responses and meetings, other meetings, individual meetings. We did not. And so at that point, we pulled her out of school, totally. She's not going back there. And now that's also sort of unfortunate because with this group of moms, some of them kind of do this work, and we have this text chain going. They say that some people give up and just leave the situation. And that's what we're doing. But it's directed by my daughter. So I'm not giving up. My other DEI friend says, why don't you go back and help and all this. It's I don't know if they'll have me back. You know what I mean? But we'll see them again later if they hook up back up in the same school later, which they might. It's just my daughter's last year of middle school. So we pulled her out of that Catholic school right next to us and put her into Selwood, where she wanted to go, Selwood Middle School, where my son went. And it was great. So, we had only kind of switched or stayed over during the pandemic, but because they actually had more school. But now it's like, well, we don't need to do that. So anywho, so I felt like as I was going through that process, I was working on DEI. And so then in doing that, it occurred to me, so if you join a group, so I kind of like not organize this group, but kind of like, I talked to one mom about it, and then she pulled in another mom, and then I pulled in the other mom, So then, we have a group all of a sudden. And then we get our plans going, and then we don't have to shoulder the whole thing. So I have that group, even though I've quote unquote left it. But then I did sign up for the DEI Affinity Parents group over where my son goes to high school. And I haven't heard if I got that, but maybe if I get that, then there's some kind of steady stuff. I kind of just need that. I feel like if I'm just reactionary and like, something happens and I just do some little post or like walk around, doing a protest just once, like, I don't know how that will help. And so what happens is I do nothing. Does that make sense? Because which is wrong. So anyway, it occurred to me, you just have to join something. So then with the school shootings, I have seen one of my friends who has joined Moms Demand Action. And so I thought, okay, so I could join that. And they do seem to like maybe even have fun. Like they're out and about doing things and they're having interesting conversations when they're doing it. So it's not all work, you know what I mean? Possibly. And so if I join that, then maybe that would be on a schedule to work on gun control. And now with feminist rights, I just don't know yet. Like this is where I just kind of look and see what people are doing. And I do gravitate toward following specific leaders that I respect, that they don't have to be actual leaders. They could just be my friend that I think that they're leading in a certain capacity. And so, I read that book by Tim Ferriss about this, 4-hour work week. And he talks about saving time by just doing what other people that you trust do. So like, even if you don't want to, we should probably look into voting and all this, but like a bad example is like just talking to a smart, educated person where you trust their values and beliefs. And just do kind of like vote the way they vote. I think he wrote this before a lot of the political issues before Trump, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so I'll kind of like, I think that lady's kind of cool. Jen Barth, it's you. I think you're cool. So I think I might join your Moms Demand Action because you've been posting about it. So whatever you're doing there, if you think, this is a weird post I'm doing with these Moms Demand Action. Well, I saw it and maybe I'll join you. And then now with the Planned Parenthood, with Planned Parenthood, I don't know. That's just what comes to mind as maybe something to look into to think about women's issues. But there's so many avenues to talk about with women's issues. And so I think I'll just go and listen to Glennon Doyle and her podcast and see what she says to do. So we should look at that. And then I did share something kind of cool from Chris Penn yesterday. He, who is a man, but that's okay. He talks about making habits. So the habits that we create, we can do that as we work on political issues. We can create habits around that. And he was saying that the Republicans just had good habits. That's it. And so that's why they've been winning lately, and the Democrats may not have good habits. And I think maybe that's what I'm not gravitating towards is maybe some liberal people just doing a lot of flashy posts, and I just don't know what the substance is behind it. And so I do nothing. But I think, I'll change that. And, it is what we don't all have the time in the world. Let's just say that. And so let's say you're a new professional and you're working a lot, or you have young kids and you can't join a group, maybe that's okay. And maybe we can lead within our own homes or in our own communities in the way we talk to people. So specifically with our kids, or, with our boys and girls, if they're young, continue talking to them about these issues, bringing them up, talking about even both sides of the issue. Sometimes we have fun listening to conservative radio. We always need to keep our enemies closer. But we do want to listen to both sides. So anyway, that's just kind of a ramble. And then I guess the last thing, I'm going to direct you, since I don't have an interview, I'm directing you over to Glennon's podcast. I listen to that all the time. I feel like it just makes me happy, their voices. And then the other interesting podcast I've been looking at lately is called Quitted, Quiitted. That's by Holly Whitaker and Emily McDowell. And they talk about quitting stuff, which is so funny because, that's another podcast. But in America, we love to just hold on to things till the death, like that makes us really strong. And so there's lots of ways to simplify our lives. And I've been thinking about how to simplify my life. And I'll be honest with you, one way of simplifying my life that I thought of was to give up this podcast, frankly. But then I realized, well, I like it. And I kind of like this community and, there's reasons. So to keep doing it. So instead, I've decided to just really focus on what clients we will take and what we won't take, and not even talk to the ones that we won't take. Not to be rude, but it's just like, I don't have time anymore. And so part of the way I can work on DEI is I could vet those clients for my friends and pass them off, ideally to a BIPOC woman. And I just want to build a list of BIPOC PR women or men in Portland or Oregon. It doesn't have to be PR, it could be communications, PR, any kind of marketing. Send it to me and I'll maybe create like a list that has just like different services. And I would like it to be BIPOC. And that's where I'm going to be sending my leads. And I think we have a lot of research to do in this area. I know there's BIPOC PR professionals out there in the country that I follow that are badasses, but I don't know them in Oregon. I do know them. Shut up, Amy. Shut up, my friends listening to me. I know too, but I don't really, it's like I always have to provide 3 referrals. That's what they said in real estate. When you had to like get a new roof or something, you had to give your client 3 sources to go to. And so I want 3 or more with different services and then different areas of focus. So what we're not doing at Veracity is a lot of, we're not doing consumer work, period. But the consumer kind of facing work that we do and would do is kind of community oriented, where the consumer is part of a community, where the client is affecting the community. So the community would be real estate. So that is real estate community or education. So that's schools, right? And so the consumers would be parents or kids, but mostly parents. So they are essentially consumers, but like we're not like selling some lipstick. Does that make sense? So anyway, that's my little ramble. And I just thought it'd be good to have a little check-in and say, yeah, things suck. I'm with you. And listen to Glennon. Okay. I'm obsessed. Last thing I'll say, I have a story about Glennon. Well, it's just she doesn't know me, but I feel like I know her. Okay, so this is really kind of sad, actually. I was standing at a volleyball tournament, right? And I was just listening to this mom and this girl talk. And this mom was really going after her daughter about her hair, the way her hair looked. And it was sad to me. It made me really sad. And I had to move away from the conversation because it was just depressing. And I thought, you have those spontaneous thoughts that you don't know where they come from. I just thought, oh, she doesn't listen to Glennon. The mom doesn't listen to Glennon. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. Love you.
Thanks for listening. For more PR insight, be sure to check out Amy's book, A Modern Guide to Public Relations, at prtalk.co. Also, please subscribe, rate, or leave us a review.